From The Australian, here's what's on the front. I'm Claire Harvey. It's Friday, April 11, 2025. Peter Dutton is steering clear of Australia's CBDs in the run-up to the federal election on May 3. Exclusive new analysis by The Australian shows the opposition leader is focused on winning seats in the outer suburbs of Sydney, Melbourne and Perth. You can check that out and all our election coverage right now at theaustralian.com.au. Donald Trump and Xi Jinping have a lot in common, and that's why they're knocking heads in an earth-shattering kind of way. Today, our man in Beijing, North Asia correspondent Will Glasgow, on how President Xi has mishandled the tariff war and how it can possibly be resolved. In the latest ad for Calvin Klein underwear, the Puerto Rican rap superstar Bad Bunny, real name Benito Ocasio, shows off his abs while dancing around in his Calvins.
The vibe is infinite.
These cotton boxer briefs are at the centre of the trade war between the United States and China. That's because Calvin Klein's parent company, PVH, has been blacklisted by the Chinese government. Blacklisting is one of the tools China uses to influence global trade. Previously, it's hit defence companies like Raytheon and Lockheed Martin for selling arms to Taiwan. America accuses China of other tactics too, like pressuring US companies to give up their intellectual property or putting tight export controls on goods America wants, like critical minerals. So, what's the problem with Bad Bunny and his Calvins?
Do you have your Calvins on?
Well, China took great offence to PVH declaring that, in line with US government regulations, it would no longer buy cotton from China's Xinjiang region, where human rights organisations say there is mass enslavement and forced labour of the local Uyghur population, something China denies. Black bans and China's other tactics, plus a giant trade imbalance, are all part of the reason why Donald Trump slapped massive tariffs on China, and it all escalated from there.
Xi Jinping and Donald Trump are both determined to be the strong man, to not look weak, to not back down.
Will Glasgow is The Australian's North Asia correspondent, and he's written a searing opinion piece that accuses Chinese President Xi Jinping of epic blunders in his handling of the situation.
They're both megalomaniacs, right? So advising each of them that you're doing the wrong thing or your strategy's not working is a very brave, well, frankly, it's a career-ending decision in both the Trump court and in the Xi court.
So here's where we're at on China. After weeks of escalating tariffs, Donald Trump announced on Liberation Day he'd slap China with a 54% tariff. China's Xi Jinping fired straight back with a 34% tariff on American goods. Trump hit him with another 50%. Xi added 50%. Then on Thursday, Trump reset tariffs on all countries to 10%, except China, which went up even more, to 125%.
President Xi, he's a friend of mine. I like him, I respect him. But they haven't treated our country right. Sure, I'd meet with him.
Donald Trump described Xi Jinping as a friend, someone he respects, a good leader. Do you think the feeling's mutual?
Well, I mean, the insincerity is mutual, right? I mean, in official exchanges, they each pretend, right, to be polite. Trump does this additional thing and has done this all the way through with Xi Jinping, buttering him up publicly, praising him, saying he's a great leader, a smart guy, a great negotiator, a tough negotiator, all these things. But yeah, overnight, Trump says nice things about Xi. He also ramped up tariffs again. That doubles the costs of Chinese products into the American market, the biggest market in the world. A lot of traders have told me directly, this was last week, many Chinese firms said there's no way we can deal with America or that we can trade to America. And they were very surprised at how high that level was. God, that looks like the sunny times now, 1 week on.
Biden allowed China to just take advantage of us. We had like $1 trillion deficit with China, $1 trillion deficit.
The way most foreign leaders deal with Donald Trump is just to capitulate. And we saw very graphically what happens when you don't capitulate. The shouting match that Volodymyr Zelensky got himself into in the Oval Office when, he chose not to just nod and agree with what J.D. Vance and Donald Trump were saying. Why isn't Xi Jinping choosing that course?
Yeah, well, I think there's a third strategy, which is try to not talk to him, right? Keep away. Anthony Albanese has mostly taken that approach. Some people on the Liberal Party have criticised him for it. Frankly, I think it's a pretty smart one. Just don't be on Trump's radar, right? Having his attention is very dangerous. But Xi has taken, the third approach. I mean, no one else has done this, of counterpunching, of being tough. Why does he do it? Xi Jinping sees himself as the leader of a country as big, as important, if not more, than America. He thinks he should be treated as a peer, and he thinks he's being grievously disrespected by Donald Trump, by America, and he's made it very clear he won't tolerate it. Now, how successful it is, in my opinion, in this last week, it's been an absolute disaster for China. They're a total outlier because Xi Jinping couldn't do what other world leaders did, which is either, he didn't need to butter him up. Like, that is an approach. Vietnam and Japan and South Korea's leaders, they called and spoke to the president, and whatever they think privately, they tried to deal with him respectfully, tried to charm him into giving them better terms. Now, they're outliers too. Most people just didn't speak to Trump. They waited to see if the markets would force his hand before these tariffs actually came into effect. As it was, he did his back down less than 24 hours after they took effect because of a total meltdown on Wall Street and around the world and on the bond market. Had China just sat on its hands and done nothing, or done nothing more than rhetoric, I mean, it could have, as it always does, filled its papers with angry editorials about America. I mean, it's been making a lot of hay in all the upset from capitals around the world about America. There's a lot of opportunity for China in that, and it's still going to exploit that as much as it can. But what it did, it took actions as well as that, and that's what's created this problem for Trump. And it just seems that by temperament, Xi Jinping is incapable of not counterpunching. And frankly, in Donald Trump, he's mirror image. Donald Trump is incapable of being hit and not counterpunching, right? They have a very similar worldview in that. Their products are very different political systems, but there's a lot of similarities between these two.
Coming up, so can this possibly be resolved? Being strong and acting like the biggest panda in the zoo has worked for China until now. They are able to use their muscle to make sure that companies who want to do business with China have to play by China's rules. What's the worst case scenario for China in this instance if the tariffs do remain, for example?
A week ago, before Liberation Day, this current scenario would be the worst case scenario, frankly, if not worse. Like, you have 10% reciprocal tariffs on every other economy in the world and over 120% on China. So the logic of moving your supply chain outside of China now is profound, right? Apple's quietly done a lot to move supply chains already, reduce its reliance on China, move to India at quite a pace, move into Vietnam. This current regime, this current setup that Trump's put in place, gives a lot of incentive for that to happen. And that's a very dangerous position for the Chinese economy. China has the option, which it did do in its first term, of not actually collecting the tariff. So there's some things it needs from America. And what it does is it sets a tariff, and then actually its customs just let the product in because they need it. I expect that will be happening in case they can't replace it. Then they're scratching around for other tools, which, as you said in your earlier example, punish an American clothing company for not using Xinjiang cotton or having an opinion on that. They can do that. They can cause a lot of terror for American multinationals operating in China. But seen from Washington, isn't that just nudging the process they want? Isn't that just going to scare American multinationals out of China? China's in a bind there. It's certainly got a lot of tools to make life very painful for American or any other multinational in China. But that has a consequence, and weighing that up is tricky for it.
Both Donald Trump and the person who was, until today, his premier advisor on tariffs, Peter Navarro, have said that the issue is not so much tariffs or even unfair practices, it's the deficit, the fact that America buys more from China than it sells, that this comes into more of a balance. Is that the only way we're going to see any kind of resolution here?
Well, I think the US-China showdown or superpower tussle goes so beyond trade, right? Let's just say in some magical future, there was a perfectly symmetrical trade relationship between China and America. The build-up by the People's Liberation Army is not going to stop freaking out the Pentagon. That's not going to change in any way China's ambition to reclaim Taiwan, bring it under its control. Same with the territorial disputes in the South China Sea. Again, that's just in that domain. Then you go into the cyber world. I mean, China's huge cyber capacity that just keeps growing and has become very sophisticated in recent years. Well, that doesn't go away with that kind of scenario either. So, just name the domain. China causes angst to America and America causes it back to China, right? I mean, there is definitely a lot of psychology going on between these two leaders with huge egos, but there is also a big ideological component to this. America sees itself as a country of manifest destiny, that it's destined to lead the world. It sees its system as one that others should follow. And, Xi Jinping, he's the president of China, but before that, he's the general secretary of the Chinese Communist Party. And they see America and its political system as potentially an existential threat to it. What Xi's top KPI is not trade relations or economic growth. It's keeping the Chinese Communist Party in power. One thing Xi has got is a clear enemy, right? And he runs a Leninist dictatorship. His party state media will be making it very clear that Donald Trump and Imperial America is to blame for all this. And if you feel hardship, blame America, right? I mean, the Chinese internet right now, the reactions to what America's done, the reactions that you see online are just venomous. People are talking about we need to beware for biological attacks from America. They could send another coronavirus. There's a lot of paranoia swirling around China. There was already, before all this happened, about America's intentions. Everything that's happened in this last week and overnight just completely confirms that conspiratorial idea that America's out to contain China. And frankly, I mean, is it a conspiracy? Trump's Treasury Secretary, Scott Bessent, said just after the latest Chinese counterpunch, we're going to work with our allies to work against China. Trade was the kind of last buttress in this relationship. Xi had already got the American business community really offside. It was a very dangerous thing for him when he lost that. China had always had America's business community making the case for China within the American political system. Privately, many in that American business community wanted Trump to get tough on China. He didn't address any of those concerns from the Americans. So quite a while ago, both sides have sort of singled out the other as a threat, as something that needs to be dealt with. And, I think we're just living through a really historic part of that story.
I think he's going to want to get to a deal. I think that's going to happen. We'll get a phone call at some point and it'll be off to the races. It'll be a great thing for them. It'll be a great thing for us. It's going to be a great thing for the world and for humanity.
Will Glasgow is the Australian's North Asia correspondent. You can read all his coverage right now at theaustralian.com.au.